Justin here for Team Shenanigans, and today, as you guys can see, I'm bringing y'all my new Star Dragon World build. With Buddy Rave coming out, we finally got Star Dragon of Bond's Jackknife, and it was a much needed change for the deck in my opinion. I mean, Aster's good, but the mirror match, no. The combination of Aster and Artilliger makes any type of Aster mirror match just make me want to barf. So I was really looking forward to building a deck with this card. So as you can tell, I'm running him as my buddy. So of course I run him at 4 copies. He's a 6/2/6 with move and soul guard. He costs 2 gauge to call out. And also part of his call cost is you already have to have a monster in your drop to put in his soul, or you can't call this guy out. So that's a big thing to keep in mind as you're building this deck, as you're trying to put this deck together, and as you're playing it, to always keep in mind you need that monster in the drop to even call this guy out. So he's a little harder to pull off than any of his size 2 versions, but he's a much better card. There's a reason why. As I said, his space stats are 6/2/6. But one of his effects is if you have an item equipped, he automatically becomes an 8/2/8. So that plus 2k boost may not sound like a lot, but in gameplay it makes all the difference. Your opponent's always having to link attack to get over him, unless they're playing like some other wall deck. And the 8k power really helps too against, wall decks, against any sort of like Raging Spirit or Seeger or anything. They have those dragons against thousands in soul, or even can really help you attack easier over like an Omni die or something like that. You don't have to link attack with everything. The end of that same ability, the same ability that gives him +2/+2, also gives your item +2. So as long as you have an item equipped and him on the field, he's an 8/2/8, and your twin star over here is going to be a 6k double attacker. So that's amazing. Amazing card. Also, like, that's not it. I just can't get over how good this card is. You would think that would be it, but no, there's more. Whenever this Jackknife attacks, you automatically burn your opponent for damage. Just for attacking. So again, just synergizes so well with this item. They're just made for each other. It's a wonder they weren't released in the same set, like together. So, amazing card, definitely a 4 of, and buddy it if you can. I definitely recommend picking up 5 and making him your buddy. So, sticking with the theme of the deck, the backup size 3 that I choose to use, I considered using like one of the size 2 jacks as a backup to go with him, but I figured since that would make me want to run Luminous Blues and Quantum Rulers, and you really can't run those cards effectively when you're trying to focus around Jackknife Bonds. So I choose to run Jackknife Full Burst as my other boss monster, my backup. He is a 7/2/6. Call cost is pay 2 gauge and put a card from your drop zone into the soul. So again, you can't call him out if you have nothing in your drop zone, but he's a little easier to call out than Bonds because the card in your drop zone that you put in his soul doesn't have to be a monster. It can be a spell. So you can cast Space Elevator or Starjack Boost, whatever you need to, or even your search spell for your item. You can cast Dragoneer's Beak. You can cast any of those, have them in the drop, and then call him out. So his first ability is counter, pay 1 life, and destroy a monster on your opponent's field with 4,000 or less power. So he can kind of help in those situations where they're having, maybe you're playing against a deck with smaller attacking monsters, so they're having to link attack to get over him. You can just counter, pay a life, destroy one of the monsters, and then link attack, and now my turn, I guess. And then he, of course, has Soul Guard, as all jacks do, and he has Penetrate. So that's why I chose to run him, because he has natural Penetrate, unlike, I think it's Jackknife Overwrite, where you have to have 2 or more in Soul for him to get Penetrate, and then there's the new promo. I can't remember exactly what his name is, but he naturally has Penetrate, but he has 3k defense. I preferred, since I'm running a size 3 deck already, to just run the other size 3 that naturally gets Penetrate and has better stats, a 7/2/6. So that's why I choose to use him, and he can also the Paying Life, along with Paying Life with these two cards over here that I'll get to in a minute, can also help enable like your Draw 2 spell if you're walling your opponent. So that's a neat little combo and just something to keep in mind. You would still always want to be on Bonds, but in my opinion, Full Burst is the best backup you can run in this deck. Moving on, I run one other size 3, and that is Great Drago Arms, the main force. He is a 4-3-6, but the stats don't matter because you're never going to be wanting to call him out unless you're just in a terrible situation. You always want to, he's a size 3, so he's harder to cross knives. You can only cross knives with like Starjack Repair, and that's basically it in the deck, besides through their call costs. But he's an amazing card, is why I run him at 1. When he's in the soul of a Neo Dragon on your field, and that Neo Dragon would leave the field, you can just pay a gauge and it just stays there. And this card stays in soul. So it's an amazing card, and it makes up for not being able to run Luminous Blue in this deck. So having this in his soul basically that turns this into like double soul guard, basically. It's as if having 2 soul in him. Next, I run one size 1 in this deck. I know that sounds weird, right? Radiant Alma, 2k power, 1k defense, and 2 crit. When it's in the soul of a Neo Dragon, you may pay a gauge if you're at 6 or less life, and give that Neo Dragon double attack for the turn. So, an amazing card. I wish I could run more of it, but it's really not worth running more of it in this build, because, again, your bosses are size 3s, so you're only going to be able to get it in the soul of your Neo Dragon through Starjack Repair or their call costs. So you're either given Full Burst double attack, and he has Penetrate, so that's amazing against like center wall decks, or you're giving your Bonds double attack, and his effect of inflicting burn damage on your opponent every time he attacks isn't once per turn. So Bonds himself is dealing 2 damage just for attacking that turn, and then they're having to deal with his 2 crit and his double attack coming at him. If he has your Drago Arms that burns them, that only activates once per turn still, but he would still burn them through his effect, and that would kick off Starjack Fang. So, amazing combo, and just burning. You deal 3 damage, and then deal another 2 damage, and that's not even counting the attacks. Just through, like, burn damage with this combo. So, it's really good. Next, moving on to the size 0s, which is the main like tech choices and where most of your choices would come in when building this deck. I run 3 copies of Star Remnant. He's a 3/1/3. He can only be called to the left, but when he's on your field, the call cost of any of your Neo Dragons is reduced by 1. So that's really good for helping you conserve gauge for effects like your double attacking with Alma, or you're saving your monster with main force, or just if you need that extra gauge to equip another item, or you're trying to link attack for a game and you have your spell null in hand, or something like that. So it can just really help you conserve gauge, where you can keep calling out your stuff without having to worry about running out of gauge. So it's a really good card. Next, I run 3 copies of Drago Arms Edge Shooter. He's a really good card in my opinion. Some people may choose to not run him just because he doesn't combo with your item on its own, but it's worth it just because when he's in the soul of a Neo Dragon, every time that Neo Dragon, when that Neo Dragon attacks, you burn your opponent for a damage. It is a named ability, so when it says once per turn, it's not once per copy. So even if you have 2 in the soul of your Jack, when it attacks, it's still only dealing 1, not 2. And since the damage is through his effect still and not Jack's, he doesn't proc Twin Star. But still, when he's in the soul of your Jack attacks, that's still burning 1, 1, and 1. So, burning for 3 damage every time you attack with your Jack, it sounds pretty good to me. I don't know about you guys. The next Drago Arms I run is Drago Arms Logistiker. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it's a 2/1/2, and when he's in the soul of a Neo Dragon on your field, and it attacks, for that turn, you give your item a crit. It's named once per turn, so you can't do crazy combos with giving it double attack and then restanding, attacking again, and swinging with a 3 crit item that way. So it's named once per turn, but it's still a really good card because, again, Twin Star is going to be 6k power and already have double attack, so making it 2 crit just makes it even better. It's just icing on the cake, really. Next, I run 2 copies of Garble Anchor. It's your spell null. It's in the soul of a Neo Dragon. When your opponent casts a spell, you may pay a gauge and a life, discard it from the soul, and nullify the spell. It's just such an amazing card because a lot of decks, spell nulls are still really good in the game, but the problem is they're really costly. Like, all the spell nulls cost 1 gauge, cost 2 gauge, and decks have a hard time, like, working that spell in as a 2 or 3 of in their deck. But with Star Dragon World, we run it in the form of a monster that gives us Soul Guard if we need it, and it only costs a gauge and a life, so why not run it? So I run that at 2, and the last monster, I run 1 copy of Drago Arms Artillery, which is just makes people so salty. What this card does is, if it's in the soul of your Neo Dragon, and that Neo Dragon does battle with a size 2 or lower, with any size 2 or lower monsters, so whether they're attacking your Jack or your Jack's attacking their monster, it nullifies all abilities of that size, of all the size 2 or lowers. So that means it nullifies Soul Guard, Counterattack, Penetrate. It just can shut down a lot of stuff. It helps you deal with any type of Ancient World deck. Fifth Omnis, it can help you get that drum off the field. It's just a really good card. Next, I run 4 copies of the item, Twin Star Jack and Fang. This is really just the key card of the deck. This deck just enables so many plays. Its ability is, whenever your opponent is dealt damage due to a Jackknife, so through Full Burst Penetrate, through Jack's Burn skill, whenever dealt damage due to the effect of a Jackknife, so not them just taking damage, it has to be effect damage, you burn them for 1. And it's not once per turn, so again, restanding your Jack, you're just going to keep proccing burn damage, and it's just going to be GG. Double attack really helps because Jack pumps him up to a 6k, so he can get over those. You can just double attack through those mid-range 5 to 6k defense monsters, so that really helps. And you have ways of pumping up its crit with Dragoneer's Beat and Logisker. That combo, you can make it a 3 crit double attacking item, and it's still 6k power, and it's just an amazing card. The call cost isn't even that bad because you pay a gauge and a life to equip it, and that can just help you lower your life enough for your double attacking or your draw 2 spell. So that's not bad at all either. And that's the only item you run in the deck. Some people might tech some other items because Star Dragon World does have some really good items, but in this build, I would only recommend just running 4 copies of this. There's no reason to run any of the other items. And so moving into the spells, this is a really combo-oriented deck, so I try to run spells to help me just help the deck do what it's trying to do. Help me draw cards, help me draw out pieces, help me put pieces in the drop, help me recycle pieces. That's really the main point of this deck. You have your win condition, and you just need to keep grinding until you get it. I run 3 copies of Dragoneer's Beat. Cast cost, pay 1 gauge, and you can either choose an item on your field and give it plus 2k power and plus a crit. So again, just with this, it can help make your Star Jack and Fang a 6/2. If you have bonds on the field, it's a 8k power 2 crit item, double attack. And if you have this in the soul of your Jack, then you're just going ham with it, 8k power 3 crit double attacking item. It's amazing. And it has a second skill also. You can only activate it once per turn, but you choose which skill you want. It can also search your deck for an item. So you're effectively running 7 copies of this if you need it, because this is susceptible to destruction. If your opponent can destroy this item, they will. So you need to try to keep an extra copy in your hand or one of these in your hand. So it's just really good. and helping you make sure you always have one, because you always want one. Next, going into the spells, I run 2 copies of Brave Memory. Pay 1 gauge. If you're at 5 or less life, draw 2 cards. So it can really help you draw out your pieces again. If you get in the late game and you've had a bad game and you're running out of resources, this can really help you start to come back. And it's not that hard to go down to 5 life with paying life for your spell null and paying life to equip your item, paying life for this. And you can even pay life for full burst other effect also. So it's a really good card and can help you draw out your pieces late game if you're starting to run out of resources. Next, I run 2 copies of Starjack Boost. If you're at 7 or more life, you can cast this card, put the top card of your deck into the gauge, and draw a card. So it's a early game card to help you draw out your pieces. It's kind of just deck thinning. It's kind of like playing a 48 card deck. And even if you draw it late game, you can just charge it away. Or you draw it late game, you might still be at 7 or more life if you haven't had to pay a lot of life for effects yet. Because this is still basically a wall deck. Next, I run 2 copies of Space Elevator. This is probably one of my favorite spells in this deck, just because you just cast this, you can search your deck for any monster, and you can either put it in your drop zone or on top of your deck. So it opens up a lot of plays. You can either put any Drago Arms you want into your drop zone to get into the soul of your Jack, or you can, if you know you have a Jack on field, right, and you know your opponent's going to get over him, you don't have any defensive spells in your hand to help save him, but you know oh crap, he's gonna die, my Jack's gonna die, but you just cast this, get another copy from your deck, place it on top of your deck. Let your Jack die, draw for turn, charge something else away, draw, and call out your new Jack. So it's basically kind of like it helps open up all the plays you need. It's just a toolbox card. Next, I run 3 copies of Buddy Recall. And what this card basically does is it's like running 3 extra copies of your Jackknife bonds. As good as Full Burst is, you always want to have bonds on the field. Full Burst is just there for if you absolutely don't. What Buddy Recall does is you cast this and you can add a copy of your Buddy monster from your drop zone to your hand. It's that simple. So your Jackknife dies, you have a Buddy Recall, just get your Jackknife back and call it back out. Really good card. I really like it in this deck since you're not running nearly as many monsters, and you're basically running 7 copies of your boss monster. Next, I run 4 copies of Starjack Repair. You can only cast this card if you have a monster with Jackknife in its card name on your field. Cast this, put the top card of your deck into your gauge, choose a card in your drop zone, and put it in the soul of a card on your field. So again, you're not running Luminous Blue in this deck, and you're running a very combo-oriented deck, so you're going to want certain pieces in your soul in certain situations, and this card lets you do that. That's why I run it at 4 of, because you're never going to say, oh crap, I drew another Starjack Repair. It's once per turn, but guess what? Just keep doing it every turn, keep spamming that soul, get your burn damage in there, get your spell null in there, get your double attacker in there, get your main force in there to keep your Jack on the field. It's just always a good card, and the gauge it gives you is just icing on the cake. Next, I run 4 copies of Speculite Ring. Since Jack is always going to be at least a 6k defense, that +3/+3 counterattack is amazing. Choose a Neo Dragon in battle. For this battle, give it +3/+3 counterattack. So if you have an item equipped, you're at 8k base, that +3/+3 really matters. They're already having to link attack to get over him, most likely. So just keeping him on the field and destroying one of their monsters is amazing. Even if he has at least 1 soul, and the +3/+3 still isn't enough to matter to keep that soul in there, still cast it if you just want to get counterattack some pesky monster, because he's still going to stay on the field due to Soul Guard. So it's never a dead card. You're always, unless you're losing anyway. So it can do nothing but help you. Next, I run 4 copies of Proto Barrier. You can only cast this card if you're being attacked, so it can't save any of your monsters, but you nullify the attack and you gain a gauge. So it allows you to protect your life points while giving you resources to continue your plays on your next turn. I choose to run this over Mars Barrier because while Mars Barrier is still a really good card, it's the Solomon Shield clone that can nullify any attack as long as it's not a link attack. So Mars Barrier can save your Jack, but your Jack's usually going to be 8k power, so they're going to be link attacking anyway, thus making Mars Barrier useless. And your opponent can always be like, oh, I know they're running Mars, and I killed his Jack, I just have to link attack for game. So I choose to run Proto instead. Proto, the only thing it can't stop is Penetrate, and it can't stop your, it can't protect your monster. So it can't stop Penetrate, so then you can just choose not to move your Jack to the center, still leave your center open, and just Proto Barrier the Penetrate attack. Another big thing is I don't mainboard the Bear Call Barret, so you're even more susceptible to Shadow Dive, but this can stop Shadow Dive, so still amazing card. So that's it, guys. That's my Star Dragon of Bonds Jackknife deck profile. Please remember to like and subscribe, and give me a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm open to criticism and any questions. So again, thanks for watching, guys. But for now, this is Justin from Team Shenanigans, signing out.